Hey guys, Decimate here, and today we're going to go over all the void rares in the game. So I know early on when you're pulling your voids, you're looking for that first Coldheart or Bellower, maybe a Painkeeper for your unkillable team, but there are quite a few void rares that are pretty decent and can help you out a lot early game, mid game, some of them even scale well into late game. So we're going to take a look at each faction and what they've got to offer. Maybe you pulled something in that last 2x that you don't have to be upset about if you didn't get yourself a Coldheart. But yeah, there's lots of great options in the void rares. There's a lot of trash too, but you know, some of them are pretty fun. We've got Draconis here. He's a new one. Dilgul is another new void rare that's actually really good. I've built both of them out to 60 and I'm enjoying both of them. Dilgul is actually on my Faction War 20 team and helped me reduce that time by about a minute. So he is quite a good champion and can come into a bunch of dungeons for you. Our Reliquary Tender is amazing, obviously. She is one of my favorites. And I believe this team of all void rares can clear a dragon in about 4 minutes. So not a speed run, but not too bad for all rare champions. And the only ones that are really geared super crazy are going to be Coldheart. She is in very good gear. She's got high crit damage. And then Painkeeper, and she is on my unkillable team for Ultra Nightmare. So those two are geared very well, but these other three are basically just geared very tanky and fast. And that's basically all you have to do for them. The Bellower is going to be in a stun set, the classic tanky Bellower in a stun set. Reliquary Tender is relatively easy to build. Basically all she needs is speed and tankiness, and she will keep reviving your champions. And then we've got Draconis here, who is putting out decent sized heals. They're nothing too crazy, but he does put out a pretty nice heal and a shield for us. And that A3 heal also has a cleanse. So that'll help keep our Coldheart off the ground. Looks like she might fall here. But if she does, we got Reliquary in there and she will pick her right back up. So this team, you know, not my everyday team, but it can get the job done. And if you've got better people to fill in any of these spots, then you'll probably get a better time than I'm getting here. But it's just to show you kind of a example of what you can do with an all rare void team. But let's jump into the index and take a look at some of the others. Alright, we'll just go through all the factions here as quickly as possible. First up is Banner Lords, and we've got two that are okay options. Neither one of them are fantastic, but we've got Chevalier here, and he has got the small version of increased defense and continuous heal, and a reasonable chance when booked, 75% of placing a stun on his A2, and then he can ignore shield and block damage there, so could get you through a couple levels on Faction Wars. I don't think he's really worth a 60 for that, but might help you out a little bit earlier as a 50. And then Steadfast Marshal is also okay. He can put a veil on everybody, put increased defense on himself and grants an extra turn, and then can also provoke. So not the worst champions in the world there. I don't really rate Vanguard at all, but those two could help you out early on in Faction Wars, but I wouldn't necessarily 60 either of them. Next we'll have High Elves, and first up is Interceptor, worthless. Next is going to be Reliquary Tender, one of the best rares in the game, and definitely one of the best void rares in the game. Amazing champion, definitely a carry for dungeons early game. She can even be useful late game. She's got a revive on a 5-turn cooldown here, and gives them a little bit of HP and turn meter. And then she's got a cleanse for your entire team, a continuous heal for 2 turns. And then she can put out that decreased attack there on her A1, which is kind of neither here nor there. Don't really want to focus accuracy on her, just make her tanky. Then we have in the Sacred Order, the only one that I really like out of these is going to be Draconis, and he is new. And I do actually like this guy. I don't think he's fantastic, but he is kind of fun. He does have a cleanse and a heal. This could be a decent sized heal as long as you can pump his damage up a bit. And that'll go to the ally with the lowest HP, which is usually going to be the one that is getting bullied by the minions. So this is actually not a bad heal. And then a reasonable size shield here on his A2. It's only 15% of his HP, so it's not going to be, you know, a huge Frank shield or anything like that. But it can help you get through the wave, but not top tier for sure. And then he does heal a little bit on his A1 here, but unless you put really crazy gear on him, this is going to be a pretty small heal here on his A1. So that's the only one out of Sacred Order that I would say is really worth leveling up. These others are just kind of meh. Harrier can be kind of fun, but not great. Next we got Barbarians. In the Barbarians, I think the only one that's really worth mentioning here is going to be Ox, and he's basically going to only be early game. He kind of falls off after early mid game, but he can put out the small version of decreased defense on one enemy, so it could work for clan boss for you if you didn't have a better option. And then he can put out block cooldown skills and a little bit of extra chance of a crit there on that, so not horrible, but definitely not great. Next we got Ogren Tribes, and we have a MVP here in Bellower. Fantastic champion. You can build him so many different ways. He can be your campaign farmer, he can be tanky in a stun set for some control. You can use him in faction wars, any of the dungeons. Fantastic champion. Absolutely be excited if you pull this guy. Next we've got Lizardmen, and we've only got one option here, but he is a decent one. Haruspex. He's got some poisons, albeit the small version, on his A1. He's got turn meter fill and increased speed for your allies on his A2, and he's got a revive on his A3, so not a bad champion at all. Then we've got Skinwalkers, and in the Skinwalkers we have Bloodhorn, who is horrible. And in Orcs, the only one I think that is worth mentioning is going to be Veteran, and he is not awful. He can definitely come in and help you out a little bit early game for sure as well. Again, he's got block buffs, which is occasionally useful for sure in some dungeons. And then he's got increased crit rate on all allies if the target's killed. That's not going to happen a ton. And then he does do decreased attack. So this is going to be his main use, maybe for clan boss for your decreased attack champion. You can definitely come in there, but he's going to fall off later game for sure. But maybe you could still get some use out of him in faction wars. Next, we've got Demon Spawn, and we have a pretty good one here in Fellhound. He is going to be pretty handy for Demon Spawn. If you are struggling in that faction, he's got healing. You can put him in a stun set. He's got an AoE A1, and that can also throw out decreased speed. His A2 is the heal and reflect damage, so useful in Fire Knight. And then he can put this block damage out on an ally for one turn. Not the most useful skill, and he tends to put this on whoever's in the lead spot, even if somebody is just about to die. So kind of a dumb AI on this champion, unfortunately, but he can be pretty useful. Also could be your campaign farmer. Next, Undead. We have in Undead probably two that are worth mentioning here. We got Doomscreech, who can be pretty nice for mid-game for you. He is kind of odd in that he's going to base his attack damage on attack and HP here for this A1, and it can put out decreased accuracy on a single target, so not horrible, but not great. And then he's got turn meter fill and the big version of increased defense on your allies for 2 turns on his A2. This is a really good move. This is definitely one of his best moves here. And then his A3 is going to be based solely on HP, and that is going to be an AoE that also puts a pretty good sized shield on himself. So not a bad champion for some turn meter fill. Could definitely help you out in some dungeons, and definitely viable for faction wars for Undead. And we've got Seducer. Seducer is going to probably be the best one in Undead faction. He's got some pretty useful stuff here. He's got his Sleep. He's got an AoE with a chance of putting out the small decreased attack for you. That's going to go up to 100% chance. And then he's got a small version of increased defense, and then also block debuffs for 2 turns. So this is actually really good here. The fact that this is on 2 turns makes this really useful. I actually used him at 50 in Undead Faction Wars for a while, and he worked out great for me even just at 50. So definitely worth taking to 50, maybe even 60. I think he's known as Seducer, and Stu has put out a ton of videos on this guy already, so if you want a better guide for him, definitely check out some of those videos. And then he does have this partner ability here, but you're never really going to be using Temptress. She's just not worth it, so we're not even going to look at that as part of his kit. Stitch Beast can come in for some cheese on Faction Wars with this big decreased turn meter skill here, but he's not going to see a lot of play outside of that. And if you are interested in using him for Faction Wars for that cheesy method for Stage 21, there are videos on that available. And that's going to be it there. We got this guy who always lags when you're pulling voids and you think you pulled something good, but it's just a Maritine skeleton and he's not good. Next we have Dark Elves, and in Dark Elves we've got 2 really fantastic ones and 1 pretty useful one. Coldheart, I think everybody knows. She is probably what you're trying to pull when you're pulling voids and you're getting a rare. You're hoping it's a Coldheart or a Bellower probably. Fantastic champion, tons of guides out on her already as well. But her kind of claim to fame here is going to be this Heartseeker, huge enemy max HP hit, and also decreased turn meter by 100%. So fantastic champion. Then we have Paragon, who is known for cheesy methods of getting Nightmare Campaign done. And then also he's going to be pretty useful in Spider 19 if you're struggling for that. He can come in and help you cheese that a little bit. Not something that'll work on auto very well for you, but he can get you through some levels in Nightmare Campaign for sure. We've got Painkeeper, another fantastic rare. She's got this A1 that fills her turn meter a little bit. Doesn't seem like a huge deal, but this is what makes her work out in some of the unkillable teams with Seekers and Man-Eaters and whatnot. I use her in my team actually. And then we've got an A2 that's an AoE. Can do okay damage for you in some dungeons based on HP and attack, which is odd. And then heals all allies by 15% of her max HP. So if you pump her HP way up, this can actually be a pretty good size heal. Useful in dungeons, useful in faction war, great ability there. And then we've got her A3, which is going to be coming down to a 4-turn cooldown, which is pretty reasonable. And that's going to decrease cooldowns on all ally skills by 1 turn. This is a fantastic ability. Again, is what makes her usable in those unkillable teams and can also help you out in dungeons. This is useful for anyone with big impact ability skills, your Coldhearts, stuff like that. She can get them cycling through to those big skills even faster. So I actually pulled her relatively early and used her for a really long time at 50, and then she kind of sat in the vault for a while, and then I've pulled her out more recently and put her into some other teams, and she's actually really good. Definitely worth a 60 even if you're not going to use her in an unkillable. I think she can help you out quite a bit. Next we have Night Revenant, and in Night Revenant we've got one that's pretty useful here in Renegade. She's kind of like the poor man's Kymar. I don't have a Kymar, so I use her, and I do use her in Dragon, and she's got my Dragon times down to about 40 seconds, I think is about the minimum that I can get. And she's got a really cool A3 here. It damages her and reduces cooldowns of all ally skills by 2 turns. So kind of similar to Painkeeper, except a little better there. And you can get away with her at 40 or 50. You don't need to max her or anything. She's going to use this skill, reset your cooldowns of your big nukers, your seers, your royal guards, that kind of thing, and get through those waves really quickly for some dungeons. So can definitely come in useful for speed runs. I wouldn't recommend building her out to 60 and trying to use her, in normal teams all the time, because she does hurt herself with this ability and is on a pretty long cooldown as well. But she can definitely help you out even if you don't max her out. Daywalker's kind of fun. He's got this cool passive that revives him and does an AoE after being killed. So you can do some kind of memey stuff with him in Arena, but definitely not a fantastic champion by any means. And then last up we've got Dwarves, and this is going to have 2 really good options here. One of them is new, and I really like him. But Bulwark is the old standby for Clan Boss. That's really his only place. He is fantastic in Clan Boss though. Again, can be part of some unkillable teams as your slow boy. I just did a video with him as the slow boy in a budget Man-Eater team, and he does a great job at that. But also for regular Clan Boss teams, he can be pretty great. Partly due to this passive here, which has a 30% chance of extending debuffs. So that's going to keep those poisons ticking for you. And then he's also got a weaken on his A1 and HP burn on his A2. So pretty useful champion for Clan Boss specifically. Outside of that, not too great. He can actually hit pretty hard if you give him good defense, crit, and crit damage. He can hit really hard, and I think a lot of people sleep on his damage other than that HP burn here, but he's not a bad champion at all for Clan Boss. And then we've got Dilgal, who I really like. Love the model. He's got a gun, which is crazy. I don't know if that really fits in the theme of the game, but it is fun. And he has decreased speed on his A1, which is not too shabby. And then he's got an AoE here that hits twice, and each hit has a 50% chance of placing decreased accuracy. Decreased accuracy can come in handy on some dungeons as long as you've got a little bit of resist built into your champions. This could possibly keep the dragon's poisons and stuff like that from landing on you and doing extra damage to you when you take your turn, so can be useful in dungeons. And then we've got a 3-hitter here on his A3, and each hit has a 40% chance of placing the big version decreased defense. So chances are you're going to place that, especially if you've got them fully booked, and that can be useful for the bosses. It's not going to help you clear the waves super quick since it's single target, but it is useful for the bosses. So this guy being void, he can come into a lot of the dungeons. He's on my faction war 20, and I believe that is going to wrap it up for the overview. So that is every void rare in the game reviewed. Hopefully I saved something from getting eaten that might help you out a little bit. We will have to use rares for some of the Doom Tower secret rooms, and I don't know if they're going to do the all rare events anymore. They seem to be going for faction specific ones now, but we did have a all rare one a couple months back, so maybe they're going to bring those back at some point. I'm not sure, but there are some good options here, and hopefully you found something that will be helpful for you. Please like and subscribe if this was helpful, and I hope you all have a great day.